Happy Sabbath once more. So let us pray. Amen. So let me do a short recap of what we have done. I don't know how the break has been too short. Anyway, I began by a mind blower. What is the Sunday law? Is it a point or is it a what? A period. And I tried to explain what that actually means. We have had many dates that people are suggesting might be the waymark for the Sunday law. So, in one perspective, that the Sunday law is a point and a period. So, we're in the history of the Sunday law. And it is being suggested, this event, 1141, I would mark it that way. This is 1141, and this is 1201. So it's being suggested that this is the national Sunday law. So what we need to mark here is a Sunday law in where? In America. And this is worldwide, where nation after nation follows. For those who are keen, I hope you know that this is a new adjustment. Because when you go to the Time of the End magazine, where does it mark the worldwide Sunday law? Where? Anyone? Rispa? No idea. Festus? Esther? Where does the Time of the End mark the worldwide Sunday law? According to Elder Jeff's thoughts. Yes, it's loud cry. We used to have the idea, after the nation passes the Sunday law, nations follow suit. So this was marked here. But Elder Terry has moved it from here to where? So if you go to the Time of the End magazine, this is another adjustment, that the close of probation is worldwide Sunday law. And I'm just going to give you a thought I shared with a friend, because I was trying to ask myself, how does the close of probation become a worldwide Sunday law? What is the dynamic of that? I don't know what you think about that. How the close of probation, and this now makes us think, even maybe the way we understand the close of probation to look like might actually be different, right? Because the event marking it is maybe what would be the marker for that waymark. Can you really see that? So we need to trace history externally and see when the world's power, or when nations of the world, this model is correct, when they will actually come to a consensus and maybe uplift and come into one mind. This is the waymark COP. I don't know whether that means when they do that, they seal their fate, and that is close of probation. Those are just other thoughts that we actually need to think about. So, and then I said, we have come to a realization that we have a new marker for the Sunday law. So when you come to the Millerite history, we have two histories, the Fugitive Slave Act and the Blue Laws. These events, which marks the Sunday law, were marked by what? Either a law or a bill. But now, we are coming to a realization, you can't just limit yourself to this. Like for the current issue at hand, it's the issue of voting that is being used as a marker. Voting is making a decision. A voting is being used to mark the event of a Sunday law. And I took us to 2014, sorry. And when you come to 2014, we all have in harmony that it is a Sunday law. And actually the three most significant events that were used were not even laws. We had Gamergate, we had the purging of the Republican Party. There's another significant event, and the blocking of judges. I think those are the frequently marked events that Elder Tess used to show that 2014 was a what? As the other events, Hobby Lobby, Ripam, all that. But most of the events, and we came to a realization, and I think this is a thought that had already been established to our minds, that fractal line of the priests, the line of the priest, is going to teach us a lesson that when you come to the Wemak Sandelo, it's not a singular event as most of us also thought, because most were singular events. Maybe you go back and realize the Fugitive Slave Act was not a single act. It was a series of acts. The Blue Laws was not one act, but a series of laws. But you're going to realize that it's a multiple events that are going to mark 2014. Not all of them are laws. So this is a thought actually maybe we should have carried to realize that the Wemak Sandelo, we need to understand maybe multiple events and not actually a law. And we are realizing now that the marker actually being debated now, it's something to do with voting. And I've tried to demonstrate and explain where the idea comes from. It's from this name. And the dilemma that we now have is that if you use this name, it is going to lead us to more complexities, because you either have to understand it in two perspectives. So this term, is it a three-step showing progression, or is it a one compiled word showing one event? And that is the problem. Because if you look at what it explains, it's associated with the number 5, it's associated with voting, and it's associated with a flood. So if you understand it progressively, then this must be 3 different events. And as I have been sharing here with Seko, we are saying, the dilemma that we have is that for most developers of the message, they have one problem. You will disagree with portions of Terry's message, but you cannot discard the entire message, because you need her message to build upon this. So this is the big problem. And the problem is, if you look what the symbology means and you understand what maximum flood is and understand it in the context of voting, you are going to disagree with what Terry is trying to show, that everything happened in one singular day, July. This is the event, one singular event. We mark all symbologies there. People are thinking maybe the maximum decision is not made on July, but the maximum decision is made on when? On November. Are we together? And if you shift to November, then the question is, what do you do with July? And the only event you have for July is the Republican nominations. Are you together? So you end up thinking it's one progressive thing in nature. And you need to understand, if it's one progressive thing in nature, then July begins something, November begins something, and then this one also must be something else, and we don't have a date. So people would think maybe it's future. Someone else also thinks 2024 is an election year. A lot of democracies have fallen, maybe others have risen. A lot of dictators have risen to power. A lot of events have actually taken place. Maybe this is a waymark. So maybe Sandelo might be the entire 2024, because I hope you understand a lot of things happen. Most thought, opinionists thought, 2024 was a turning point, right? A lot of things happened. So someone also has those thoughts. And the question is, what are our thoughts? So after doing that, I'm saying we have two perspectives. Is it this or future? Is it one singular event, everything on one date, or is it progressive? And I'm saying we need to come to a consensus on that. We also have other studies, I'm saying, which are different perspectives, also coming to explain the same thing, the Sunday law. We have a perspective from Islam, we have a perspective from the king of the north, king of the south. We also have people who are trying to put to scrutiny this version of Elder Terry, coming with different perspectives of, I think this is wrong because of this, I would go with this. All those thoughts should be, we should be able to understand them for us to come to a unison, to a concord on what actually is the waymark that would mark as the Sunday law. Are we together? Then I took us to this history, the 1888 history, and someone thinks that we are mimicking that history. The same problem that existed in that history for the Church of God, it is the same problem we have. Mistrust, partisan spirit, lack of a unified message. We have the law of Galatians. Someone thinks that law is what? The moral law. We have another person who thinks that law is the ceremonial law. Another one thinks that law is both moral and ceremonial. Who is right? That's the same problem. One thing that they understood is that, one thing that we understand is that this history here should be a lesson to teach us. So it's a Sunday law history. It should be a lesson that we should derive parallels from to be able to be on the right side of the issue. So we are going to see two messengers, Jones and Waggoner. Jones is in Congress defending the Constitution. He's dealing with external message. He's dealing with the events. It's a constitutional issue, and he's going there to defend it because the issue at hand will lead them to break the law of God as Adventists. And then you have Waggoner, who focuses on a message of righteousness by faith. By understanding the law, they are going to realize that the law cannot save you. So as much as we want to defend the Sabbath, as much as we would want to have freedom of worship, we need to understand the most important lesson: righteousness by faith. What actually guarantees our salvation is to realize the purpose of the law and the work the law plays, and realize the law cannot save you. But what can save you? If you have read Waggoner's work, it's to realize the purpose of Christ on the cross. So this is what is happening in this history. So, and we are going to see that some parallels are drawn now, which Linda has a question. And now I hope I can remember the line. It was, who was the first? I forgot. It was Festus, then Maureen, yeah, and then Linda. So we are going to see that the parallels that are being drawn is that if this history is what we are mimicking, then we have the two messengers, one dealing with the external, another one dealing with the message of righteousness. The nature of humanity is what enables you to pass the test. So, same parallels, but the same partisan spirit that existed is what we have. So, I don't know, Festus, then Maureen, that's where we had reached actually.
Whatever I wanted to say, I don't know if I still happens because I think it has been my past. But the point I wanted to make was like when we go to LNT White, which is actually where it gets that whole concept of the Sunday law from. LNT White says, the speaking of dragon is the action of is the judicial and the legislative action, something of that sort. Now, when we focus on RNC as the Sunday law, that is July 18th, part of the reason as why I have a problem with that is we are focusing on, let me say, Trump coming to power. And some, as a Republican, because, okay, we need maybe a Republican Party for that to happen. The RNC is only elected by a few individuals who are RNC, who are Republican Party members. You know, there are people who voted for him at the national elections, but they couldn't take part in the nomination. It means in the nomination. That was a nomination. Because they are not members, the registered members of the party. It's like when you have ODM, the people who attend the conference there for the need to vote, they are members who are registered as ODM members. And we find it's usually a few people. Now, Going back to the point that I made first on what the Nigeria said on the legislature and judiciary, the legislature comes into power, let me say, we get to know who will form the legislature on November 5th and not July 18th. Because for the whole concept actually of the law actually is not totally gone. Because actually for uh, there's still an element of law in it, okay?
Yeah.
And so when I know we have the element of supermajority, the concept of supermajority, whereby the members of the House of Representatives, if they have up to at least two-thirds supporting a certain bill, it doesn't need the president to assent to it for it to become a law. We know that. So we know at the election on November 5th, they win actually both houses actually because on November 5th, besides the election of the president, we had all the members of the House of Representatives, 4,400 and something, I don't know, it's 465 or something, being elected. And we know the Republican Party won that also. Now, the element of the judiciary, which I'm also tying into the November 5th, when it's coming actually, we know that it is president who appoints judges. Okay? And uh, the election of Trump actually on November 5th actually also decided on the issue of how the judiciary would look like. Because now a Republican president won. That's it. What was the other point? I had like 3 points, but I've forgotten the other two. When I gather my thoughts and
Okay. So just to summarize what Festus is saying, correct me if I'm wrong. So point number one is, I have a problem with July because based on inspiration, Ellen White puts it clear, what makes America speak like a dragon is the enactment of laws, which are actually enacted through the legislature and the judiciary. And actually, we see the legislature being put in place not on July, but actually November. So that's the first point you are trying to show.
they spoke of the legislature first before the judiciary being put in place on November 5th.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the judiciary is the president who appoints.
Who appoints the judiciary. So the president comes
so
in.
If a Republican president actually makes, because by July 18th, actually, we never knew
who is the president.
The president. But come November 5th, we know that actually the appointments of the judges,
it's
both
Trump.
federal judges and the Supreme Court judges, when they'll end up leaning to that.
So you think November 5th has more weight than even July?
On a lot of points.
Okay.
To me, the whole July, it's just far-fetched. The whole there's a lot of things.
Okay.
And the issue, okay, the other issue was that you are emphasizing that it's until the concept of 5 years maximum came, that's when we shifted to voting, the issue of voting. I bet that's not the case actually. The issue of 5 years maximum, I think the concept was brought about recently, let me say, by maybe those studies of Wednesday, you can correct me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but way before actually, when we are looking at the Sunday law, when we are focusing and saying that the Sunday law will be 2024, I bet we were already having the concept of voting on the issue of 5 years maximum.
Okay, I think we had the issue concept of voting, but it was not seen as a possible marker for Sunday law. Because most of us thought of something to do with a law, a bill being passed. So that is what would mark the Sunday law. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think most of us had that idea that based on past histories, it might be a series of laws, it might be something to do with equality, but I don't think, I've not had anyone who gave me thoughts like, the only thing I know that touched on election was 2016, we mark the Battle of Ipsas, the American election as an event, right? But we don't actually associate with voting. What we associate with is the characters. Antigonus fighting to overthrow the three. That is Trump fighting to overthrow the three arms of the government. There is another election we mark, we bring to perspective. Is it 2020 election? But we don't focus them more to focus on election, on voting itself. That idea of voting has been brought to me recently. Like, it's not something that was on the front line that we expect to see a voting. Maybe we would say we expected to see an American election influence the Sunday law event or the Sunday law waymark, but not in the same manner we are doing currently. Okay, Maureen. Yes, it was a comment. Okay. We try to answer? Which question? The one of second testimony. Uh-huh. Okay, thank you. I said to him I'll respond to his question in the evening. I'll try to give my perspective. It was Linda, yes. But I agree with your thoughts. Uh, Trying to draw parallels from Daniel 3, two events. You have the setting up and the worshipping. Something is being set up first, then you need to start seeing the worshipping. So he's trying to show that the setting up is that RNC where the three are set up, calling it manosphere, and then you start to see the worshipping. That's what you are saying. Okay. Okay. Based on?
since that time. So that is one. Two, number two, but the example is about, I don't know if in my head what several times now you have been a lot of emotions to your class. I'm at maybe the lesson. I see management document. We have the methodology. Now they are giving us the ability to question, to try to expound, kuona kama something of the truth. So I'm trying to see the comparison to make the not so good policies from 1888 now we want to compare now. So and then lastly, how are you settling on other table? We have other persons who have given thought that maybe the farmer can come and oh, we are doing great. Come at the other time we had we have several people who are giving their thoughts and ideas, and then we either settle them or we don't. So how are you telling, like, how are you putting at the table as how are we, is it a must that in 1888 we have two messengers and then say we must have two messengers?
Okay.
We may have more, we may have less. So how are you settling that?
Okay. So responding to the first thought, the Tea Party. So I agree, not just even the Tea Party, but we can actually see a lot of movements or a lot of events leading to the shaping of the Sunday Law. Because even 2014, you have the Project Blitz, yeah, by Jerry Falwell Jr. So this is where the Christian evangelicals are unified in purpose to make sure they appoint a candidate who suits their ideology, who actually implements the ideology. People would give many examples, and I don't think I disagree with that. And we would mark even the movements that I think during the Vespers class that Elder Tess mentioned, the Proud Boys, all those movements, the nationalistic movements that were there. There are a lot of things you draw parallels to show that the Sunday Law has been shaped. Because when you go to the Boogaloo and those movements, these are men's activist movements, right? And they have one purpose, they have one ideology. And this is what we actually see even bringing an influence into the 2024 election. So I wouldn't disagree and say we can actually see it from the beginning. I would agree with that because there are many things you draw parallels. And just to give a model is, when you look at what Ellen White says in one of the quotes, is that you need to see the movements in what? In progress. So everything is progressively moving to come to a union. So there are many things happening in America. You can trace them right from the time of the end, I would say that keeps on escalating to lead up to the Sunday Law. So to me, I wouldn't disagree with that and say that actually it's not only in the RNC, but you can see them coming. But I think what Elder Terry has tried to mark is that all these movements moving progressively, where do they come together and where do they come and you reunify for one purpose? They might have been moving separately and coming closer. And what she actually marks in the study is that you now begin to see the three, she calls it the threefold union. You begin to see it plainly coming together and I would say making a formal decision in the RNC. That's what she marks. You begin to see the Christian evangelicals rallying behind Trump, who represents men's rights activists called the Dragon Spirit, and you see Vance, who represents Catholic integration, all that. So she's trying to show that despite us seeing all those movements in progress, there is one specific event that reunifies them there formally, and that was she marks as the RNC. Are you together? So the other one, I didn't understand what you meant.
On that, in as much as Anama the RNC, maybe hajaona like for me the main reason why now they come to action is Obama is the president. Yes, what organization financial crisis we are 2008.
Yes.
Or this should never happen again and all that. But they are maybe the US is going to pick up with like the democratic US in a far the good the now. But now this group of us we should be doing things a certain way. So their formations, their ideas, the community they are.
And I'm saying I agree. Like if you have a thread of story showing from the Boston Tea Party, I don't have a problem. I'm saying I agree with that perspective. If you can be able to draw parallels that justify your argument that this idea you see in the RNC didn't begin here, it began where? In the Boston Tea Party 208 or 209, that history, and even Obama's era. I am saying I agree with that perspective. One thing we need to understand is that just because maybe Elder Terry has always narrowed on one perspective, it doesn't mean when you bring bits that contribute and put more weight, even more than what she gives, it's wrong. Like you can actually say, Elder Terry, I think this issue you can even trace it from 208. And if it's you're able to make the best parallel to show that, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think it's even more better to add such arguments to either challenge or put more weight on what she's actually trying to show. So, yes. Yes.
So are we not allowed, us now giving these questions and other ideas on what maybe the Sunday law would look like? Is that what we are prepared to discuss? The Katian community lack of unified message and discourse. Is that what you're being compared to that?
Okay. Is this why you are saying there is emotions to that? Because I wanted to understand what you're saying by study as emotions, and I'm like,
yeah, like first compare laughing upon the emotions.
Just tell me.
Sababu, we like in this side,
Yes. Yes.
we can question anything. Like a truth, if I go over question.
Sure.
So maybe me put them in this fire, and then we are here. Hey, 1888, kulikuwa na mistrust, and this in mistrust. So like you know, so what are you comparing to this example?
So, okay, I get you now. So I think when I was actually trying to explain this, I was saying, when you look at what I'm saying, we are mimicking that history. I think everything that happened here was an issue to do with the message. That is, if you have read the 1888 materials and you look what was there, actually, I think, I don't know whether I can remember one of the quotes, where Ellen White says, there was a lot of discontention in the movement by then. And those who were on the front line actually were trying to discredit the message that Wagner and Jones were trying to give. Are we together? So it's not, it's an issue to do with the message and the environment that existed in that movement. There are people who are disagreeing with something. There are people who are agreeing with something. There are a lot of loose ends. There are people with different versions of the message. And I'm trying to say it's the same dynamic if you are understanding what is happening, if you are following carefully what is in the movement. We have a lot of messengers. We have a lot of loose ends, even on the front messengers. And I'm saying it's the same spirit that exists. It's not that I want you to have some emotions and say, because I don't want to be branded as the one who is having the distrust. I think we are mature enough to understand we are looking at it in the prophetic sense. I'm not saying that now because there is this, then you think when you ask a question, you'll be branded as someone who mistrusts the messenger. I don't think that's the perspective I actually want you to see. I just want you to see, even when you come to this history, 1850, do we have the same dynamic? Does Ellen White address the issue of chart making business? And that's a prophetic lesson we should learn. So it doesn't mean now because someone has a message, I go direct and say, Carl, this is chart making business. But then you must also understand, it might be if we are going to learn lessons from this. Do you really see that? So we need to have the maturity to realize we have models and parallels that we can draw from past histories. Some which bring a negative perspective, others which bring a positive perspective, right? And each is a lesson for us. So I wouldn't come and say now Elder Terry is the one who has the chart making business unless I am able to prove that. Or it's Elena or it's anyone who is presenting. But these are parallels that we need to learn from the history, that they are there. What lessons can we learn from that? So as the Sandalo in this history, internally there was another problem. Everyone claims this is the best chart I have. Everyone has a version of his own or her own chart. And then Ellen White comes and says, whose chart is the correct one? It's Nichols' chart. Are we together? So what do you do with the other charts? Same problem existed not just these histories, but here. 2019, we had messengers, right? We had the same crisis. Someone has a message. We had Theodore, we had Elder Jeff. They had their own version and they are saying, actually the Mean I Cry message is not one person, it's a multiple of people, right? And I think Elapamina was in Kenya 2018. I think Mlolongo, if those who remember, for a school. I happened to be in that school. And what we are trying to understand is how do we go to history, take parallels and try to explain what is happening. And when you do that, it gives you some negative and positive. So, and I think when a rebuke was made, and that's where the idea of chart making business came from, Elder Payimda was trying to give a prophetic argument that the messenger is one, it's Elder Tess. You are bringing counterfeit charts to discredit this one chart. I think they ought to have taken that positively and as a prophetic rebuke realize they might have something pushing them to come up with that. But actually, they need to realize that you can only focus on Elder Tess' message. So I think we need to be able to have that balance. When someone gives you a prophetic rebuke, don't take it personal and realize you are shutting me from doing something. I actually do not intend that. Maybe it sounds as if I would apologize for that. But I'm trying to show it in all the perspective of prophetic narrative, what is happening in the movement. I'm not now saying that because someone asks a question will be seen as an offender. It will be seen as an offense. When someone questions something negatively, like I don't agree with this, I wouldn't take that personal. I actually think in my perspective, it is through such challenges that people grow. It is through such scrutinies that you refine your message and become perfect. I would say as a teacher, just to a bit be personal, for me, I've grown to be, I'm not good, but I've grown for myself to be a bit better because of scrutiny. I remember, just to put it, when we were in aviation, people, the likes of Polycarp, Okiri, those people used to challenge me. They never realized I was new in the message. So Okiri wants answers. Before you answer, you want, and on top of that. So I have to realize before I present, these questions will be asked. I have to have answers on that. Polycarp would read Ellen White, and that says, plain, he knew it, for those who remember his way. And I don't think that was negative in nature. It was just to motivate you to think. So we need to take things in the positive and the prophetic way, not more of the moral, because you might think, I have a problem with this. Maybe if I ask, actually there's a study in 2021 here. Acts 27 brings two prophets. Do you remember? In Cyprus, there is a true prophet and there is a false prophet. And maybe someone would think, the model shows there are two prophets, a false and a true. Maybe you have something that you'd want to challenge here. And what do you think? They will call me the false prophet. I don't think that should be the mind of someone who wants actually to contribute and learn. Rather than present what you have, ask what you have, and then be willing to be either challenged methodically to be shown, I think your thoughts are right or wrong, and maybe you're able to accept that. You might not actually have the right answers given to you, or I cannot actually convince you the right way, but this should not actually affect our relationships, right? I always teach everything in the maybe it brings that emotion, I'm sorry for that. But I'm not trying to show anything in the personal perspective. I'm trying to explain the nature of what is happening. And maybe to touch on the last question, then we continue. I haven't actually suggested personally that I'm teaching elder test perspective and this is what everyone should accept. If you were there when I began, I said, I'm going to give a mind blower, what will challenge our minds. And what I'm trying to show is the current affair, what is happening in the movement. And you as members, me as a member too, we need to think loud and ask ourselves, of all these perspectives, what is right, what is wrong? I'm not saying when tomorrow you come and give Kati's presentation, I will just raise and say, don't give that, is wrong. Are we together? Because currently in the movement, no one has been told it's right or wrong. The only person I've heard loosely being said, there is a problem with that, I think it was Pedro's classes. Later, Lapamina said, we discussed unisonly as leaders and we realized there are some problems with Pedro's message. Are we together? But for others, they have actually been given a platform to justify their cause. So maybe tomorrow I will now come with someone's version. Maybe it's Elena, and I say, this is what Elena says. We as members, how do we understand this? Where do we see problems? Where do we justify? Where do we see correctness? Are we together? And I think that's how we develop and grow. I'm not trying to say I'm only focusing on one because this is the person I agree. At my personal capacity, I may agree with Elder Terry, and doesn't mean that Elder Terry is correct in all perspectives. It means I'm bringing this here on board for us to put to scrutiny as Festus is giving the thought. I think November has more weight than July. Actually, I can see that. And I'm saying I agree with Festus. But how do we solve with this mystery? We had a conversation with Seko and I was saying, I think November, if you deal with voting, has more weight than July. But now, there are also bits that you can't discard from July, because you discard July and then you don't have a marker, because you will have problems to show you don't focus on this and you want to focus on only one. So those are some of the loose ends we need to harmonize. How do we move progressively in one accord?
So have we said, in the example, like, in 1988, we had two presidents. So, so are you in any way saying, am I giving the how are you setting the?
So I think I gave the title of the study and I said, it has been a line of thinking. As Elder Terry has been giving this, and I think they are going to give some justification, and I will try to draw that parallel. Maybe I can put it here. So I think if I'm not wrong, it's the international camp meeting that happened. Was it October? If I'm not wrong. And I think the studies that were being done was to establish the waymarks, the dilemma. What is the waymark for the Sunday law? And this history was drawn here. So this is Paniam 2021, and this is the Sunday law history. And as you look at the repeating patterns, this is Boston, this is Concord, and this is Exeter. Where the test begins, the test comes to an end, and then you have a shadow. So this is the period of the test, the beginning and the end. So that's a structure that we have had. So you'd mark it from all the four dispensations: the plowing, the early rain, the latter rain, the harvest. So you have this pattern. And specifically for this, some dates were given for what we mark, we would call concord, or the increase of knowledge. And what we mark, we would mark as the formalization of the message. So this is the arrival of a message. So this was seen as 2021. What waymark was given for this and this? For those who understand or will remember. So this was June 24th. 2022? Yes, 2022. And you are going to realize for this waymark, we are going to have two perspectives, the internal and the external. So what event happens externally that marks June? It's this court case. Then what is marked internally? It's the last Vespers classes of elder test. This is internally, it's these classes. And there was also another event that you'd parallel. It was also seen the Ukrainian war would parallel here, because the Vespers class began on February. I think they ended on June. Same issue, the escalation of the war in Ukraine began in February to this. So there are two events based on your story. So this is the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So you actually see this is what was being marked internally and externally. And then you come to this event. And this is May 30 to 31 of 2024. And this event, we also need to understand, it is both internal and external. And when you come to the external history, what is being marked is May 30th. And Elder Terry was trying to mark the conviction of who? Of Trump. While internally, she was trying to mark some messages that she's going to give. This is Elder Terry's second presentation, and it's when she gives the study of Acts 27 and the study of Quintus Fabius Maximus Judges. So this is Elder Terry's presentations. And this is the second time. The first time, they are going to give them in the islands of the sea, and the studies will not be projected because of the internet issues. And it will be on April 1st. So this is the first time. So, and they are going to suggest that the very same way Elder Terry presented the message here in April, the message is repeated here. They were both Elder Paminda and Elder Terry on April, but they were not able to record because of network issues. So the message is repeated. And so she's trying to suggest that the message that she gives here is this message here. So in this dispensation, are we together? The messenger and the message is this. And now a big dilemma that is being asked for everyone who has a different message. You're being told, you want to give us a message here, but come up with your dates on these past histories. And no one seems to have an idea of what these two waymarks are. And the thought is, be consistent, thread your story. Show us, if you have the message here, how you thread your story from here. Can you really see that? And that's why I'm saying it becomes more problematic now, because you might have something here, but you don't have anything here. And the only person who is trying to show how you feel these waymarks is Elder Terry, who is showing it's this waymark that I gave a message. So this message is the formalization, the message of Acts 27 and the Sunday law. And at the same time, Elder Paminda now comes with this study, Prepare to Meet Thy God, and tries to draw parallels that the same dilemma we have here, it's the same dilemma that existed in 1888, not on the moral perspective actually. And the study it tries to show is this, that I have been trying to give this message, which is in parallels, this message here. So I think my work was try to trying to bring all this into our minds and ask ourselves, do we actually agree with these logics? Do we actually see sense in it? I'm just here as a vessel to just try and explain what actually is being presented, what actually is happening, and then we can put to scrutiny everything. Are we together? And ask ourselves, does this has merit in it? So, what problems can we see in this? And then I think at the end of the class, we are all going to come up better, maybe unlearn something or learn something. Are we together? So when I present here, I'm not saying this is final, everyone should actually accept. I'm just trying to give a perspective to bring everyone up to speed to understand what is actually happening. So I saw your hand.
Yeah. So there's bias that is called availability.
That's called?
Availability
Okay.
means when you hear something many times, you're likely to think that it's the right thing. They also go hand in hand with another one called consensus bias. Tends to give you the idea that this is the argument that everybody has, even though there is no true consensus. So you say like today you're giving this that the next time, I think I'm piggybacking on her question. So like so another time you come and you do maybe some other perspective, except that is not what is happening. Everybody is coming and giving this exact perspective. So nobody is giving the other perspectives or in detail, or you did give them like in passing before, but not really expounding on them the same way. So you are biased us without availability, or you're making us think that, okay, you're saying that I'm not telling you to believe this or this, but in a sense you are. In a way you are saying that, you're not saying that. So what I'm wondering is the honesty in that, and how, or whether we have a danger of that bias, and how do we address that? Even in the other studies that are being done, yes, other people are being given the vaccine, but we know clearly certain people do get certain airtime more than others, and therefore we have a heuristic availability, heuristic bias. So so then, would we say that therefore this so people will that not having all the information given to us, okay, we may have had the information before, but the fact that we are here with one more than the other,
Yes.
many times that is what our bias is. So that we not had the other.
So I see your sense.
No consensus, and it's about now. We are putting all this out here so that you can all hear and then you can all come to opportunity. If that's the reason you reject it, which I'm not sure. This may be different to that is you reject it. But then if that is the intent that you are putting so everybody to hear, then at least it should be.
And I think that's what I said. I'm bringing everything here when I began. It's a mind blow. I want us to think. I'm bringing everything here for us to put to scrutiny. What does that actually mean? I'm not saying that you need to buy this. I'm saying this is the.
What you're not, but I'm saying you are. You're saying you're not doing that when you're doing that.
I don't understand then because
So, me, what I would say to that, I think when someone comes to present here, they present their convictions, right? So, if there are other thoughts, it is your responsibility as an individual to go and maybe listen to all those other thoughts. Because maybe there you haven't had, okay, like for instance, I know it's against July 18th and the whole Teachers Maximus thing. So when he gets an opportunity, it is his responsibility now when he comes here to share his convictions. Maybe the reason why he had July 18th a lot is it happens that the people who have presented so far have similar convictions, but it's not that the other information is needed. That information from all the other different perspectives has been there since last year. So why do we feel like one message is being pushed more? Does that mean that we have not taken time to listen to the other perspectives and had our own convictions and come there together. So I think the only reason it seems like it's being put is because maybe the people who presented so far have similar conditions.
You know, so like now, so they're doing it out there. So they call it ask they have to say, you are here with this condition, this condition, and therefore I'm putting this right here. And not that I'm presenting all these different models to you, therefore, so that you can all decide if you are doing that, then you should do that without a bias. I do accept that if you have a condition, I think you're going to do it, but if the event is not that, what is the event? The event so that people can come to a consensus, so that you're giving them all so that you come to a consensus. I'm an event here, which should be clear. You should say, like, me, I'm giving you my perspective, and I want you to believe this perspective because I think it's true. But the others are there, you can go and listen, because that will be correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I disagree with the point that everyone who teaches here is teaching their convictions. Because I think sometimes people are teaching something or just presenting what they are not sure about. They are not convicted about it. Maybe they feel, maybe there's an availability bias. This is what they've seen so many times. And then that's what they will share because they think, yeah, that's the most relevant topic now. Some people, like maybe what you said you want to discuss the various options. I think you did say you have a bias for Nigeria, but you're not fully, you're still considering it. So then, to me, that means, are you saying that you're not 100% convicted for all these things on the board? I would say, yes, you're not 100%
Yes.
convicted by everything here. There are some things here which you're putting for people to scrutinize, to say, okay, does this make sense or does it not make sense? So I just wanted to
Okay.
say that I don't think everyone who teaches here is teaching their conviction.
Okay. Okay, I had seen Mwangi then Linda. Yes. Legislature. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Been on. Okay. So I think yes. Yes. Okay. I'll just comment to your thought shortly, Linda. 15 minutes. Okay.
So, speaker, I'm saying redirecting the question because hapa I'm trying to fight the question. Must it be now that there is this messenger and this time, and then if you did not give this message, maybe at top of that much anyway, what I'm saying is, as a tele and poor and the official which has been agreed upon. Maybe even this other teacher. So now, because there's upper, this Sunday, there are different ideas, some are comments on what can do. So are you saying that by the fact that you are in position this other side and not the other, that her version of Sunday is correct, sababu sijasikia this other topic what is disagree with this part even as a justification for
Okay. Okay. So just to touch on Steve, because Joy responded, I think you should just corner me and say, you must present what you are convicted on. And I will just respond to that based on my role personally and your role personally when you stand here as a teacher. And as Carl has tried to put it, sometimes you'd come and present something. I'm not saying that's what I'm doing. I'm just giving, recording his perspective. Just because you must be convicted on it. Rather than that, don't just stand here and present what you are not convicted. Because I try to give a reason why I'm doing this. I actually even said this was not my study, but people wanted more, yearned for more, and so I shut down my book, which had the study, and we continued the debate, right? So this was actually to tell us, how do you think about this? I actually wanted to give a simplistic thought. What waymark is this? And I tried to give multiple issues, multiple events, multiple teachers who have different thoughts. And I even tried to explain, some have come from different perspectives. I actually think in one of my daily classes, I've even taught about Elena's class. I've welcomed someone who has taught about Kati's class. I think Maureen can testify to that. Not that I'm biased to one person, but I want people to listen to this. And that's what I'm saying, as a role as a teacher, I want you to be aware of what is happening for you to make an independent individual decision. And I think you can come back to Elder Paminda and people asking him, Elder Paminda, why are you not telling us who is correct? And what thought has Elder Paminda tried to show? Go back to 2014. An angel tried to make a decision for the movement. Was it the right decision or the wrong decision? It was the wrong decision. So you're saying, I'm allowing everyone to present. I don't want to be, maybe it's my thought, I don't want to be in the same problem to shut down maybe a messenger who seems to be right. And just because the messenger doesn't seem right today, doesn't mean that as message goes on, the person will become wrong. Are we together? So it's the idea of letting everyone present the case. And we as members come and put everything to scrutiny. And you are going to actually know if you are following the right methodology to put everything to scrutiny. This is right, this is wrong. And that's what I'm saying. I'm welcoming thoughts like Festa's arguments to challenge that, Mwangi's arguments to challenge that. Because I also want to reason. Why would I disagree with July? Maybe there is a thought that says all the three must be in place. Maybe there is the thought that says this must be placed. I tend to think that is a productive way of learning when we put everything to scrutiny in the motive of learning. And just also to suggest that when you look at the movement actually and how I understand, I think everyone is welcomed to present and give reasons for his faith or a faith based on a character, let me say, a habit we have learned from the Millerite history. Most of the pioneers were able to present their cause and how they understood the word of God, right? I think it's the same platform open for everyone. But this movement as one habit, we ought to have a methodical way of presenting something. So you need to understand, for you to come and present and justify your cause, you must present in the brackets of the methodology we have. Are we together? So a Protestant cannot come with a doctrine from Protestantism and present, because you are going to use the same methodology to discredit or to approve that. Maybe, you know. So, and just by asking whether we are speaking Elder Terry, because she's the one who presented here, I'm saying, if you listened, everyone was given a chance to the most common simplistic way, and I think the elder has always repeated this, and this is something that was actually given from 2019 when we had a such problem. This is 1989. I would mark this as the Sunday law. So you need to be able to do what? I would say this is one of the catalysts to test our messengers with their message. Don't just come here and say, I have a message, and your message is only limited to this. And I think that's the tactic in 2019 that was used. Elder Jeff would go to a story, pick the story of David and Absalom and whoever, and then say, that story is addressing here. And I think the thought was, thread us to a story that arrives to here. Because when you understand the nature of waymarks are not independent. It is this thread. You need to be able to thread your story. So And what everyone has been challenged, every other teacher, is if you have a message here, just openly thread a what? And I'm saying no one has been able to thread these stories here to show I am the messenger here and I gave this message, or this is the messenger here and gave this message. Almost everyone, if I'm not wrong, tends to believe that this is correct. Maybe someone can correct me on that. Everyone actually acknowledges this is a correct model. Where they actually have a problem is where? And by that virtue, you realize that no one has been shut to give a course here. Only that no one has a better argument to discredit this.
So that is why
Exactly. That's why I'm picking the message here and I'm saying the study of Acts 27 is not going to be picked, but it leads us to another dilemma.
and we just messengers are talking to you, because me, I'm not agreeing with the idea that since we had two messengers in this time,
Okay. I'm not saying that we only should limit ourselves to two messengers, because actually, when you look at our history, if you can come with a model that shows I should be a messenger here and I should fit here, I don't think anyone will discredit you. The only thing is that someone has come confident enough and said, I am Wagona, I'm Jones. Challenge that thought. No one is able to challenge it. If you challenge and say you are not Wagona because of A, B, C, D, E, you are not Jones, or I am Ellen White here and this is my message, I don't think anyone will say that you are wrong. I don't know whether you are getting it. Everyone is given a chance to come in a methodical way, prove your cause. No one has come and said, I'm the third messenger here. Because actually there is a model that shows in 1888, how many messengers were there? It's 3, right? So that just because someone said, I see 2 messengers and doesn't speak of the third, doesn't mean that that is the only version. If you can come with yours and show, I'm the third messenger, this is my message, it has merit, I don't think anyone will disagree with that. All I'm saying is that you need to have a logic to prove everything. And you need to limit yourself into the brackets of our methodology. That's where our strength lies. If you prove your cause, it's right. If anyone comes and says, I don't agree with Elder Terry, and gives a more robust message that everyone can actually testify, this is right, I believe that's what will be adopted. There is no, as Joy is trying to say, that everyone being overlooked. Only that people, for now, the most prominent one who has actually had that platform is who? Is Elder Terry. And I think most of us used to present international wise. And everyone has been shut and said, these teachers are the ones who actually have a platform now to present to all these ministries, to give their course. Everyone will come and we will be having a better opportunity to ask questions. Maybe Elder Terry will come and will ask Elder Terry, as Mwangi is asking, why July, not November, or why this and not this? And you maybe the originator of the message will have a more better answer to give to you, either to convict you the right way or you still disagree with that. Are you together? The only thing is that we need to realize not everyone has an ability to access all this or understand all these things because of many reasons. As I stand here to give all this to you, I'm happy when we are challenging and taxing our minds to think and challenge every bit of information here. This is what will help us as a movement to agree. I would say forget the idea of whether I'm convicted or not. Think more of the idea, does this message make sense to you as an individual? Forget about my convictions. Yes.
You know, what I'm wondering is if we have a methodology, for example, where you say the message for true, it has to be spreaded from that uniqueness so that it becomes a test for people's message. And you also have other methodologies. Why is it so difficult to say that this is right and this is wrong? The way we did in 2019 with ahead and other people. Why do we say that I don't want to say this is wrong, I just want to give you on the platform? They speak 1 month later, they are still saying the exact same thing.
Okay. Maybe to answer to that, it's because so far, not everyone has been given a better opportunity to present the entire package of the message. Most of them have given them in bits. So the idea is you can't make decisions when not everyone has actually developed the message to the climax. Are you together? let everyone present, and that's why they have been given the platform. Let everyone have the better time to explain everything. Let everyone have time to interact with the members and the members understand. And then I believe from there, we will actually decide who is right, who is wrong. But you cannot just say we go with this person, yet the other people there in line waiting to present and they have not been given the chance. And I think this was the concern. That why is it we are focusing on one, and the idea is we didn't have that platform to give them. Now it's there. So it's the idea of let everyone present. If you would want to give the entire pack of your message, you only need time. That's the time that has been given to everyone. And then from there, and I think it's not even the elder who will do that. You yourself, by putting everything in place, you can actually tell this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. If you understand the methodology and how to test everything.
Exactly as nearly as soon as the test was eventually like uh, the Paminda was already saying that those are the other chat. It was almost we say that okay now let's put the chance. So now we clearly that the way to do that right now is honest. I wanted to be shown how I can do this. So, secondly, I would like to know whether, okay, now, sorry, now wait, not going to say this. I don't know if he should be the one who's saying the message is wrong or not. Okay, I'm explaining it like he doesn't be the one who say. So, who is going to say? So, what are we waiting for? So that you know, like now, in the US, and then others are making their mistrust, their whatever mistakes are.
Okay, you want to respond to this or to ask on top?
I'm asking, and I have
Yes.
who is the movement? Because you only see at the movement, who is the movement? Number two, because there are about Sunday law. Sunday law is national Sunday law. Then you're taken as a COP, you're told that it's worldwide Sunday law. You're given as a marker of Sunday law, which is national, because it is the marker is broken. Now I'm asking, is the worldwide Sunday law marker broken?
Okay. So I think to respond on Steve's, what I understand, I'm not trying to defend the elder, but I think it's not even Elder Paminda, but even Elder Tess defended her message and gave models and arguments why she thinks it's her message and it's peculiar. And I also think Elder Paminda went to the same models and justified that. So I don't think it was dishonesty, but one of the idea I remember was, if you looked at, I happened to watch those studies personally. It was about numericals, using the numbers 490, all those. And I think in my perspective and what I understood from that, even not have listened to the arguments that were given and justifications, there were some flaws in what they were giving right from the beginning, because they were not unable to thread a storyline. It was just numbers and dates. But you ask someone, what event do we have here? And what event do we have here that relate? And there was none. So it was about more problems than solutions. And that's why it was easier, soonest possible to identify that this was wrong. For now, I don't think, and I've said it, Pedro just presented, was just given a platform, and it was like we as leaders have already decided this is not right. So I don't think it's about dishonesty, but it is about how you're able to thread your storyline. One has already been discredited soonest possible. Others have not yet made mistakes that would make someone say, I disagree with this. I don't think that's dishonest in my perspective. Yes, it's time. So on Mwangis, I don't know. I'm struggling with here, and you won't take me to here. I'm struggling with here.
Yeah,
Yes?
because you dwelt on one, use the remaining 2 minutes to present the other perspective.
I'm saying I'm already struggling with this waymark, and you want me to explain to you how this waymark looks. And I'm saying it's the same trap. People who were presenting in 2019 had the same problem. They wanted more to understand. Actually, LDJF was predicting the Sunday law, right? So, and he was being asked, you are even struggling with 2019 and you are taking us, he was even actually saying 2024 is the Sunday law, and you are taking us to 2024. So I'm saying, like, we are still here. Let's harmonize this first, and this will come out clear. Yes, my time is up. Yes.
Kamala Harris won the election, then we could have run the president. That's one thing. But because Kamala lost,
This is the problem, and I think I don't know how to respond to that, to say yes or no, but I think there was sufficient evidence why we needed to look for Trump. Right from the study of the last president, by closely examining Eldate's Vespas class. Eldate's Vespas class focused on libertarianism, focused on men's rights activists, and who influences the election. So it's methodically correct to show from the past dispensation what Eldateri gives us. It's what leads us and helps us to understand how Sunday law looks like. It's our biases that leads us to Kamala Harris. And I think those biases leading us to Kamala Harris, someone tries to come with that justification. And I think it's easier to make that. And I think the last time we were up there, we were trying to show, in my perspective, maybe I'm wrong, but Pedro was influenced by the narrative in the secular world to go and interchange what is in Acts to justify what Pedro thinks is right. My perspective, I'm saying. So I tend to think if we are going to trust our methodology, our lines, what we have established before, it was better to explain to us that Trump was actually the last president. I mean, it was actually Trump who should have won the election. Only that we are in that dilemma, what is actually out there, and sometimes we are carried off by it. So I'll stop. Maybe we have Q&A. I like the questions. So let's close. Thank you, Lord, for your care and protection. Thank you for this wonderful platform to be able to come out and discuss your word. Let us continue thinking out loud about these issues. Give us the correct perspective and the correct message that will continue leading us until the end of this path. Guide us until the end, for I pray this, believing and trusting in Jesus' name.